Well, it was the late 90s, and I was very poor. I had just graduated from college. I went to some fancy private school to get an MBA. I specifically went because I thought it would help me not be poor. But the opposite happened. I graduated with $70,000 in student loan debt, and I moved to New York City, and I just scraped by. It was pretty ridiculous. So while all the other, young, well, I was like late 20s, so everybody else is sort of Sex and the City style. They're going to Boulud and Balthazar, and I cannot afford the Times Square TGI Fridays. So what I would do for dinner instead is go to Rudy's. Has anybody heard of Rudy's in New York City? So it is a bar that has been there since 1933. It is the diviest dive you can imagine, and it's on 9th Avenue, really close to the Broadway Theater District. So you literally might find like a chorus girl or a musician from the 1950s sitting at the end of the bar in the middle of the afternoon. But the reason I loved it is because they had cheap beer. At the time, it was $5 for a pitcher of Pabst Blue Ribbon. But more importantly, free popcorn and hot dogs. So this is how I subsisted for the time I was in New York City. Sorry about it. So what did I want to say? So my typical routine would be I went to my job in advertising in Soho, and then I would walk 40 blocks because I didn't want to spend the money on a subway token. And I would walk 40 blocks up to Rudy's. I would stop by, I would get my free hot dog, and then I would sit in one of the booths. They had those round vinyl red banquettes, like Rat Packy, right? And some of them were taped together with duct tape. And I would sit there, and some of the other regulars who were like me, we would split a pitcher of beer. So I got to know some of the regulars a little bit. There was one guy who was there a lot. He was pretty cute, but I really didn't pay too much attention to him. I thought he was too young for me. I think he was 20. So we would do this. This would be a very regular occurrence. We would just go up there, drink our beer, eat our hot dog, and everyone would chat. And so his friends were like always trying to get us together. They said, he's really into you. He's really into you. I'm like, I don't feel it. Cute guy, but I don't feel it. So this happens over and over, and then one night his friend says to me, Joe, you gotta give him a chance. He's super into you. He's been trying for weeks. You don't give him anything. And I was like, I just don't feel any chemistry. He says, have you heard him sing? Okay, hang on. I think this room will understand. I have been obsessed with music since I was 9, maybe earlier, but 9 was the big moment when I saw Rock and Roll High School, and that was it. I was obsessed. From then on, all I cared about was music and musicians. So I was like, oh, he sings? So I say, hey, I hear you're a pretty good singer. He's like, I guess. I sing on the weekends at a hotel bar and play the piano. I was like, well, maybe sing something. And, I goad him into singing a little bit. He sings something I've never heard before, but it is so good. I suddenly feel some kind of way. So that is how we started this little romance. So it was a couple of weeks. We would do the exact same thing. We would go to Rudy's. We would have our hot dog. We would drink until the bar closed. We would walk to my apartment. We would make out for hours and hours. And then he would leave. That was it. We never went to another bar. We never went to a restaurant. We never went to his place. Every once in a while, we'd have like a semi-deep conversation. But that was it. And then he would leave in the morning. So one night, we are back at Rudy's. This is probably going on 5-6 weeks now, right? So we're back at Rudy's, and we're just doing our regular thing. But the crowd is really crowded, and we're getting jostled around a lot. And finally, I snapped at this guy. I was like, will you please stop bumping into us? It's just very annoying. So the guy leaves, and he takes my purse with him. So when I realized my purse was gone, I'm panicked because I had everything in there. My pager, my address book, my money, my keys to my apartment. So it's frustrating, but so my, little romance guy and I, we tell a cop. The cop takes some notes, and then he's like, good luck. So what are we gonna do? Stayed at the bar and kept drinking until 4 a.m. So the bar is closing, and we do what we always do, which is walk back to my apartment, and it's cold, it's raining, we're drunk. I go to the doorman, and I say, hey, can you let me in? I lost my key. And he said, I don't have to let you in. I said, but you know I live here. And he said, yes, but I never liked you. So I was kind of bummed about that. So I said to my boyfriend, what do you call this guy, right? I said, listen, we're stuck, we're screwed, so I'm just gonna go to your place with you. And he looks at me and he says, no. No alternative, no explanation, just no. So like, maybe 3 days earlier, he's sitting on my futon in his boxer shorts singing, and I said to him, you're so incredible, you're so incredible. I remember what I said. I said, the world needs to hear you sing. And we had this so terrific moment, and then 3 days later, he's like, I don't. So he leaves. I'm standing on the corner of 57th and Broadway in the pouring rain, 4 o'clock in the morning, drunk off my ass, no keys, no nothing. What do? I found a payphone and I called 1-800-COLLECT. And back then we knew everybody's phone number, so I remembered a friend's number. I thought he might be awake because he was an artist and they'd stay up late. And he answers the phone and I'm like, my keys are still, and I don't, and he says, okay, calm down, get in a cab, come down here and I'll pay for your cab. So I do that. And when I get there, my friend is living in an illegal artist loft, so I have to cry quietly so he doesn't get caught. So I'm telling him, this is terrible, I'm sick of this, I can't do this anymore, I'm tired of being poor, I'm tired of shitty men, I'm tired of rude doormen, I'm leaving New York. And he's like, you'll be fine, calm down. But I did. 7 days later, I packed all my stuff, I flew to Kentucky where my mom lived. I inherited her Mazda, and I drove to California. So that probably would be the end of the story, but about 4 years go by, and a friend of mine is working at Paramount Pictures in the music department. And she calls me and she says, hey, we have up-and-coming musicians perform for our department, only a crowd of about like 15 to 30 people max. I know you're obsessed with music. Do you want to come see some of them? I'm like, yeah. She's like, great, well, the first one is this guy, Gavin DeGraw. And I went, I know that name. I have something to say to that motherfucker. That's the guy who left me standing on the sidewalk in 4 years ago. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to this. So I get all dolled up. I go over to Paramount Pictures. And he sits there on a piano. There's literally no more than 25 people, just like this, and he's playing the piano and singing, and he says, hey, has anybody in here ever heard of my favorite bar, Rudy's? I went, yes, I have. And he looks out, and I mean, like I said, it's small, but the light is right in his face, so he can't really see me, and he goes, oh yeah? Did we ever drink there together? I said, yeah, we have. He goes, oh yeah? What do we name the baby? Everyone in the crowd laughs, right? I'm like, oh, fucker, you don't even know how close you are to reality right now. But my friend who works at Paramount's like, hey, this is not the time or place for this conversation. Can we just hang out? So he finishes his little set, and afterwards he comes up to me and he was like, hey, he's like, I'm Gavin. I'm like, yeah, waiting for him to recognize me. This was not a one-nighter. This was like close to 2 months, right? I'm like, uh-huh. He's like, so did we really drink at Rudy's? I'm like, yeah. He still does not recognize me. So I said, you know what? Listen, I cannot believe you do not remember me. We hung out constantly. Not to be crass, we probably had sex 75 times. Like, seriously? And he's like, I was drunk all the time. I don't remember anything. I'm like, oh my God. I said, okay, all right. He goes, how about this? Give me your phone number, and I'll call you, and we can catch up and reminisce. I'm like, oh. Okay. So I get a piece of paper and I write down a phone number and I give it to him. And I don't know if he ever dialed that number because I didn't give him my number. If he dialed that number, he would have heard, thanks for calling Rudy's, home of the $5 pitch of free hot dogs every night.